There are three sides to every story: yours, mine, and the truth. Welcome to the Triangle Report. I'm Michael Wintemute. Today's report is called Some Lose and Learn, Some Do Not. With the federal election behind us, it's worth examining why the Conservatives lost. This election was unequivocally Mr. Poilievre's to lose. He began with a lead that should have been insurmountable. How does a party go from 24 percentage points in mid-January 2025 to losing an election by 5% just 90 days later? The responsibility for this outcome does not lie with Trudeau, Carney, or Trump. This marks the fourth Conservative election loss since 2015, and in this instance, Mr. Poilievre not only lost the election, but he also lost his own riding. My election philosophy is not one of socialism or capitalism, but of realism. I do not belong to a political party, and my choice in a federal election is based on who I believe will make the best Prime Minister for Canada. Canada has survived under Liberal and conservative governments, so I have never felt compelled to leave Canada if my preferred candidate did not win. So let's examine how we arrived at this point. In 2006, the Conservatives, under the leadership of Stephen Harper, formed a minority government. In 2008, Prime Minister Harper called an election and won a second minority, which he followed with a majority government in 2011. By the time he called an election in 2015, he had been Prime Minister for 9 years. I had supported Mr. Harper in all three elections. At the time, I was living in the riding of West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky country, and our Member of Parliament was John Weston. I, as a past president of the Whistler Chamber of Commerce, had worked with John over the years. When he called to ask for my support in the upcoming election, I told him he could count on my vote. At the same time, we discussed his opponent, Pamela Goldsmith-Jones, a well-respected former mayor and councillor from West Vancouver. He was facing a tough race. I expressed my concern to him that Mr. Harper should have stepped aside. It wasn't a question of his performance. Rather, it was my observation that the public appetite for an incumbent party rarely extended beyond 8 to 10 years without a change in leadership. I believe the Liberals under Mr. Trudeau were going to win the 2015 election. The most difficult decision for any political leader is knowing when to step aside. For Justin Trudeau, the time became obvious, but for Mr. Harper, it was not. Unlike the United States, we do not have time limits for our Prime Minister. And after winning a majority in his third term, I have no doubt Mr. Harper believed he would win a fourth mandate. The economy was doing well, he was fiscally responsible, and he was respected by his peers on the world stage. Unfortunately for him, voters were looking for a change, and they gave Justin Trudeau a majority government. The Conservatives now found themselves back in opposition. As is common, Mr. Harper resigned after his loss, and the party elected Andrew Scheer as their new leader. The 2019 election saw the Liberals re-elected, but this time with a minority government. Mr. Scheer subsequently lost a leadership review, and Aaron O'Toole became the new leader, only to lose the 2021 election, again to Mr. Trudeau. Once more, the Conservatives undertook a leadership review, and Mr. Poilievre became the leader of the Conservative Party. So we're going to look at the polling numbers from the 2021 election through to the 2025 election cycle. And the numbers that I'm using were pulled from the CBC Polling News Tracker. And while other polls may differ slightly, they all have an error of margin, and they do illustrate a clear trend. So I'm going to use these numbers and look at the Conservative collapse. So how did the Conservatives move from a 24% lead to a 5% deficit in just 111 days? The Liberals' popularity had started to erode prior to their minority win in the September 2021 election, and continued to do so afterwards. When Mr. Poilievre won the Conservative leadership race on September 22nd of 2022, his party had already gained 2% on the Liberals. Under his leadership, conservative numbers climbed steadily, primarily at the expense of the Liberals. By the summer of 2024, it was apparent to observers of all political leanings that Mr. Trudeau no longer had the confidence of the majority of voters. The narrative became about how far the Liberals would fall. The pressure mounted, and on January 6th of 2025, Prime Minister Trudeau announced his resignation. On that date, the polls showed the Liberals at a low of 20.1% and the Conservatives at 44.2%, their highest spread of 24.1%. This is where the dynamic shifted. On January 16th of 2025, Mark Carney announced his intention to run for the Liberal leadership. Just 4 days later, the Conservative polling numbers peaked at 44.8% and then began to fall. By February 23rd, with the Liberal leadership race in full swing, the Conservatives had dropped to 41.8%, while the Liberals climbed to 27.4%. On March 9th, Mr. Carney won the Liberal leadership, and by March 23rd, when he called an election for April 28th, the Liberals had pulled into a statistical tie with the Conservatives. Halfway through the election campaign on April 13th, the Liberals had opened up a significant lead, and on April 28th, they won the election with a minority government. Why the Conservative collapse? As a plaque on President Harry Truman's death stated, the buck stops here. Mr. Poilievre was leading the Conservative Party. It appears he and his party failed to consider to what degree their climb in the polls was due to his own popularity versus the unpopularity of Prime Minister Trudeau. The data shows that when Mr. Trudeau resigned, the protest vote against him began to dissipate. Voters who had parked their support with the Conservatives began to reconsider their options. The only thing that changed between January 6th and a steady decline in Conservative support was the absence of Trudeau as a foil and the emergence of a new Liberal leader. Donald Trump's influence was not the decisive factor. If it were, the shift would have occurred after Mr. Trudeau's trip to Mar-a-Lago at the end of November 2024, not after his resignation in January. A 30% swing in 90 days cannot be attributed to Mr. Trump alone. The collapse was internal. When you lead, whether in business or in politics, you must represent a diverse group of people, leaving personal feelings at the door. Whether intentional or not, Mr. Poilievre seemed to become a Trump mini-me. The word woke, for instance, became a staple of his vocabulary. He likely used it without appreciating its history, a term originating in the 1930s with African Americans, to mean awareness of social and political issues. While it was later adopted by the Black Lives Matter activists, by 2019 it was being co-opted by the political right to disparage progressive movements. Another Trump-like rhetorical device Mr. Poilievre adopted was a constant repetition that everything is broken. I watched a news conference where he claimed his hairstylist told him everything is broken, proceeding to list the stylist's grievances. I go to a barber where we do not get in-depth into politics. In my experience, a relentlessly negative message is not what voters want to hear. It is politically alienating, much like a perpetually pessimistic acquaintance from whom one instinctively seeks distance. If I am wrong, why did conservative polling numbers begin to fall the moment Mr. Carney announced his candidacy, well before he was crowned leader? The question the Conservatives and Mr. Poilievre must answer is why they keep losing. The answer is not external. It must be found by looking inward at their policies and, most critically, their messaging. To win in our multi-party system, you must convert voters who are not naturally aligned with you. If your policies or tone alienate them, you should get used to losing. As a person who has spent 30 years in management, I was struck by Mr. Poilievre's use of the word humiliated when describing forcing changes to a government bill. The job of the official opposition is to challenge legislation and work to improve it. In my management experience, success comes from outperforming the competition, not from seeking to humiliate them. Taxpayers provide the leader of the official opposition with a residence, Stornoway, as a sign of importance and respect for the position. A good example of using humility and willingness to work harder than the competition is the Avis advertising campaign introduced in 1962. The campaign was based on Avis Tries Harder, which focused on Avis being the number 2 car rental company behind Hertz. The campaign used self-depreciating humor and emphasized Avis's dedication to customer satisfaction. The campaign was highly successful and revolutionized advertising by focusing on honesty, humility, rather than just product features. Avis dramatically increased their market share. Ultimately, from my perspective, Mr. Poilievre does not demonstrate sufficient respect for the office he wishes to hold. You don't have to agree with the Prime Minister or their policies, but leadership is earned. In the military, you salute the rank, not the person. Avis may be a private company, but a political party is also an entity trying to convince the general public they are worthy of their support. Showing respect and humility is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. Thank you for viewing the Triangle Report. If you enjoyed my podcast, please share it with a friend. Give me a thumbs up, or better yet, subscribe so I can continue to research and deliver new topics. If you have a topic you believe would be of interest, let me know, and as well, your comments and suggestions are appreciated. All my podcasts are available in a written article, and they can be found by following the link at the end of this podcast. Your support is appreciated.